Year after year, with unwavering dedication, McLeod Health has stood shoulder to shoulder with families, friends, and neighbors, bringing healthcare expertise and compassion to all the communities we serve. As the region's most trusted healthcare resource, our physicians are here for you. Our nurses are here for you. The entire McLeod family is here for you. McLeod Health, here for life.
Thank you all for being here. I'm PJ Browning, President Publisher of the Post and Courier, and CEO of Evening Post Publishing, which owns all of our newspapers. And it may have been the best kept secret, I'm not sure, but this is our official launch into the PD region. So we are very happy to be here. Somebody came up to me tonight and said, I knew about this because I saw it on Editor and Publisher, a podcast we had. So I was like, shh. But we've been hiring staff, working very, very hard to bring the Post and Courier to the PD region, and we are absolutely thrilled to be here. We do have an office, and that office address, so it's the old post office, which is probably most important to you. And yes, Dr. Carter, we need a much larger sign. If you've seen our sign, it was not a big splash. So our Chief Opportunity and Marketing Officer is planning to redo that, right, Chris? But it is at 201 West Evans Street, and we would love to have you come by and see us. I'm going to tell you just a little bit of the business side of what we have planned, and then we'll move into talking more about the news side. But as a part of the launch, I will say that we are a locally owned newspaper, and we have been around, we're celebrating 220 years this year. So we have a very, very, very long legacy of providing what we hope is excellent journalism, but more importantly, we hope that the Post and Courier PD becomes your newspaper and not ours. It's very important that we have community collaboration and that we're reporting on the issues and things that you guys care about. Want to talk just a minute about our chairman of the board, Pierre Manigault, and my apologies, he sends his regrets. He is sick with COVID, so I told him we don't want you here. He was sick as of last Thursday and not feeling much better this morning. But I want to talk a minute about Pierre. He's fourth generation newspaper guy and extremely committed to providing local news to the communities that we serve. We tell, all the employees will tell you two things. Our secret sauce is Pierre Manigault, and that content is king. He's always believed that a strong newspaper is needed to really support our democracy. And he's given us the reins and the ability to really back that up by hiring reporters, which probably leads you, why are we expanding statewide? We really have seen news deserts start to form across South Carolina and certainly other places. Within the United States, we've lost over 30,000 journalists. And, it's hard to cover a local community without reporters. And so it's very important that we're trying to support South Carolina in the various expansion markets. A part of how we've done that is you'll see local reporters on the ground here that are here in the community. We support that through a couple of efforts. In Charleston, we don't really have a corporate office. We rent a small space in Charleston, but we're a mighty team. You'll have a group of editors that will help support Chris, who will be introduced later. And then we also have a projects team, so we'll do a lot of major projects that could be statewide projects that really will feed into any region of the state. That could be minimally adequate when we talked about education. It could be the Uncovered series that we did. And I know, Autumn, you'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also, we try to support that team with the statewide team that we have out of Columbia as well. So we have over 12 reporters just covering State House activities. So we really try to bring you local projects reporting and then the state legislators and what's going on there. In addition to that, we will come to market as a 7-day digital newspaper and we will let you help guide us into what else we need to become. And I'll give you some examples. In Greenville, they really needed to have an e-edition. So that e-edition was very important to them. I don't know yet if that's important to you, but if it is, it's something that we would do. The e-edition is simply a PDF of a printed newspaper that you can flip and read online. Some people prefer that versus a feed that is 24/7. You know, they really like to say, I want to know the news and I want to be able to say, did you see what was on the front of page 1? So anyway, we will let you guys help guide us with all of that as we move forward. You know, to start out, it's business, education, growth development, quick response, what's going on. It'll be the arts coverage. Obviously, I've also heard tonight people like sports, so we'll have to talk about sports. And then we will start out, and Autumn will talk to this, but we'll also have an opinion and letters to the editor as well. We've always believed that that's a very strong part of the newspaper, and those voices need to be heard. So I will tell you, in Charleston, we have a Golden Pen Award. We will bring that here. That Golden Pen Award is a letter writer is awarded each month our favorite letter, whatever topic it was. And then we celebrate that at the end of the year by having all 12 of our winners to a luncheon. And it's one of my favorite events that we do all year because it really speaks to engagement within the community. One other thing I want to mention is that, you know, expansions like this cannot happen without really great partnerships. And boy, do you guys have some great partners within your community. We have truly been blessed. I want to mention the B. and Ray Norton Foundation, Darla Moore Foundation, Francis Marion Development Foundation. And, you know, as a part of our coming here, we were able to make this bigger and better. And one of the ways just through this partnership is our goal is to have 18 interns from whether it's high school or college in Florence, and that would serve news, advertising, and marketing. And we feel like those opportunities for children in this region are something that we should be proud of, and we should be able to help guide them through really experienced editors and reporters, marketing personnel, and advertising personnel, and hopefully show them a path to wanting to report in South Carolina or sell advertising in South Carolina. But with that, that's the business side. I know we'll have Q&A later, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But I will tell you that great journalism starts with a fantastic executive editor, and it's my pleasure to welcome Autumn Phillips.
Thank you. It's nice to look out and see some familiar faces. It's been fun coming back here a few times, and it feels great to be bringing local news back to the PD. Over the last few months, we have hired a staff. We've moved into offices downtown, and we've already hit the ground running if you've been following some of our coverage. First, let me tell you about the people we've hired, and let me tell you a little bit more about what you can expect from us. So the person overseeing all of this from the Charleston newsroom is local editor Cleve O'Quinn. If he'll stand up. So Cleve grew up in Florence. His father, Les O'Quinn, had a great career at what is now called the West Rock Paper Mill. Cleve loves the PD and has worked at the Post and Courier now for almost 30 years. To lead our newsroom in Florence, we've hired Chris Day as our editor. You may know Chris from his time as managing editor of the Florence Morning News. He's been a journalist for decades, working at newspapers in Oklahoma, in Alabama, and in Florida. And we've hired 3 reporters. You might have already met Seth Taylor, if you'd stand up. Seth started with us on April 17th, so 2 weeks now, and he's already been very busy. He's been covering local government and business in Florence. He moves here from Wyoming, my home state, where he was working as a reporter at the Buffalo Bulletin. We've also hired G.E. Hinson. G.E. graduates from the University of South Carolina on Friday. And this will be her first job out of college. She starts on the 15th of May, and she, GE, grew up here in Florence. So how exciting is that to graduate from college and get to cover your hometown? And then at the end of the month, you're going to meet Tyler Fedor. He is also from South Carolina. He has been the managing editor of the Daily Gamecock at USC. And during his time in college, he interned for us 2 summers in a row, and I think you're really going to like working with him. He, I don't know what I was going to say. Oh, he starts at, sorry about that. He starts at the end of the month. So speaking of internships, PJ was talking about how we're going to have 6 interns a semester, fall, spring and summer, 2 of those each semester in the newsroom. And Alex Jenkins, are you here? Yes. So Alex is going to be in our first class of interns starting this fall. Alex is a rising junior at Francis Marion. And then Deirdre Curran will be our other intern this fall. She is a rising senior, is actually studying for finals right now, so she's not here with us this evening. So you're going to have a newsroom with an editor, with 3 reporters, with 2 interns a semester, but they are going to be part of something much bigger. So the Post and Courier now, with our statewide newsrooms, we have more than 100 journalists working in South Carolina, and welcome to that network. The Post and Courier, over the years, we've cultivated a way of thinking about journalism. I talk about it all the time in the newsroom, the Post and Courier way. I'll tell you a little bit about what that looks like. So a Post and Courier story is well told. So we work a lot on the craft. We care about narrative. We're always having trainings and reading other people and trying to get better and better. A Post and Courier story, it matters. We always ask that question when somebody's pitching a story. Why does it matter? Who does it matter to? And how can we make sure that people understand why it matters? It has impact. You'll see Minimally Adequate was a story we published. Someone out in the cocktail hour reminded me that was 5 years ago that we published that project. It was something we worked on an entire year to look at public education in South Carolina and ask the questions about why are we consistently on the bottom. Since then, out of Minimally Adequate, we ended up launching an education lab that is a statewide look, continuing to push for quality public education in South Carolina. A Post and Courier story has context, and it's written with authority. Something that we're really learning how to bring to the table is, Cleve, for example, or some of our reporters, they've been covering South Carolina for decades, 20, 30 years, and that kind of knowledge isn't best served with, as a stenographer. It's really bringing not your bias, not your opinion, but bringing your insight to the table. So good examples of Post and Courier work are up here, our Uncovered series. If you've been following along, we partnered in 2021 with 17 community newspapers around the state. We asked editors at small newspapers all over the state, is there something that you know is happening in your community? Corruption, abuse of power, somebody treating taxpayer dollars like their personal ATM. You've always wanted to write about it, but you just didn't have the time or the staff or the money for the records. Tell us what those stories are, and we'll help you do them. So over the course of the past couple years, we, in partnership with those newspapers, have uncovered a lot of corruption. We've learned that if people aren't watching, that they'll put your money in their pockets. Another example is in 2019, we were actually here in Florence. It culminated in this project, No Way Out. I still remember that day. It was 2018, and we heard that somebody was firing at law enforcement officers from their second-story window. We knew we needed to get here. We sent a reporter and photographer up here to drive the 2 hours from Charleston to cover the breaking news. And then we continued to work on that story for the next 6 months and published No Way Out, which was a deeper look at what happened that day and what allowed it to happen. And we'll continue to cover that story as Fred Hopkins goes to trial. So to wrap it up and pass it on, not only will there be great reporting, but Chris Day will be writing 2 editorials a week. Our readers will get a chance to respond to those editorials, to the news, and to each other through letters to the editor. If you want to submit a letter to the editor, postandcourier.com/PD, bookmark that. You'll see at the top there's a bar, and click on the word letters, and it'll give you a form. And that's really the easiest way to do it. Or you can always send a letter to the editor at letters@postandcourier.com and just put PD in the subject line. I'm looking forward to all of this. Now I'm going to turn it back over to PJ.
Thank you, Autumn. Events like this do not take place without great sponsors, and we really enjoyed all the food and beverage this afternoon or this evening. So a special thank you to McLeod Health. And if I can ask Donna Isket, President and CEO of McLeod Health, to please come to the stage.
Well, welcome to our home. And for some of you, welcome home. What you'll find about the PD region is that we're special. I even heard some of that mentioned, that as you have met the people here, there's a new warmth because we're a family. And McLeod Health has been a part of that family for the last 117 years. It's such an honor for me to lead the organization that's serving 18 counties in this region. What you're going to find about us is we're not perfect, but we're special, both in the community and in the health care that we provide here. Because what we do is follow the core values of McLeod Health that very much link in to the same values. Dr. Carter and I made eye contact when you talked about using those interns, because we believe in improving the health and well-being of this region. And the best way to improve that well-being is gainful employment and meaningful work. And so what you're going to do is Post and Courier with that, and what we're doing at McLeod Health very much aligns with that. But you also link with our core values, the value of caring, and that means we all have a meaningful part in this world. The value of the person, that we should respect our differences and learn from each other. The value of quality, I heard those words used multiple times. Quality and excellence, we believe in that too. And we believe in the value of integrity. And that means to tell the truth. And I heard you talk about that as the Post and Courier. So it is our honor to sponsor tonight. We believe in the symbiotic relationship that we're going to have, that we already have with the educational institutions of this area, we already have with the community, but we welcome you as the Post and Courier to that too. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So one of the other things that you'll see is that we really like to have community engagement forums, things that will bring people out to just talk about issues. So we've done that in the past. The things I would say, boom and balance, which will be tonight as we talk about redevelopment. We like to do pints and politics, which that should be a pretty lively topic for the next year. So you'll probably see us bring pints and politics here. And then Autumn mentioned our education lab. And I believe the last time we were in Florence, we did the education lab. So all really good things to just talk about. So that brings us to our next segment tonight. It's my privilege to introduce our local publisher on the ground. So if you have issues, you can call him. And also he will lead our digital sales director for the Post and Courier PD. He's got a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, and it's my pleasure to have Tim Matthews come up and kick off Boom and Balance.
Thanks, PJ. First of all, I can't express how excited I am about being part of the Post and Courier's expansion into the PD. I mean, it truly is an honor and a privilege to work for such an iconic news organization. And talking about Boom and Balance, I want to introduce the president of the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce and invite him to come up and say a few words, Mike Miller. So, Mike, I visited you last week at your office, and we were talking about when you first came to Florence back in the late 90s. I wonder if you would share some of those thoughts and your observations with the audience on your first time in Florence.
Thank you, Tim. Excuse my voice. Things seem to have got some pollen going on with me, but I'm going to talk about a couple of things very, very briefly because we're already a little bit long, but some of them center around anecdotal experiences I have had since coming here in the late 90s. And while I've had plenty of conversations with Dr. Carter and a number of people that came about the same time I did to the region, the topic of downtown has always come up for different reasons, and mostly because there wasn't much down there. But I can tell you this, I ran into George Jabali very early on. And if you want to talk about somebody that had some passion and some commitment about downtown, it was George. It didn't matter where we were at. George had drawings of what downtown could look like. They were artist drawings, architectural drawings, but he was always showing them off. But I saw two things, commitment and passion. It wasn't long after that I ran into our mayor then, Frank Willis. And he would take a lot of grief from people over the years about reconstruction in downtown and revitalization, and he just kept saying, look, I'm talking about the real thing. I'm not talking about flower baskets on light poles. Then I met Dr. Carter. He and Senator Leatherman came into my office one day, and they were talking about building a performing arts center downtown. It was a big deal. He asked for the newspaper support. He also asked for some financial support. I could see the passion and the commitment that both these individuals have for doing something downtown. It wasn't long after that one of my friends, I'll just say his name, Tim Norwood, we were at a social, and he says, you know, I'm moving my restaurant from South Irby Street to downtown and making it larger, part of a larger project with some investors. I said, you're what? And we had friends in the room, and they looked at Tim, and they were not believers. They were non-believers. They just thought this was not going to happen. Who's going to come downtown? FLT came downtown. The same argument was made. It won't work. Nobody's coming downtown. It isn't safe. Well, folks, the chamber moved downtown, and I remember looking at the building that we were part of renovating, and I remember the second floor falling into the first floor with the green shag carpet. The smell was, I can still smell it. I looked up through the roof, I could see the pigeons, I could see where people had made their homes in the back. And I looked at the folks that were there with me saying, Mike, I know what you're thinking, but it can be done. And I started thinking of the passion of the people that I just mentioned, and a few others, many others, including Wakila and our current mayor, Mayor Irving. That is when I said, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to happen. But since then, we have seen from our offices at the Chamber, we have seen Cress's Corner, Town Hall, Hyatt Place Hotel, Florence County Judicial Center, the Emerson Apartments, the parking garage, Carter Center for Health and Science Building, the Hugh and Jean Leatherman Medical Education Complex, Carolina Bank, the county parking garage, and a variety of others. And we saw them all from the ground sitting on our corner downtown. And I can tell you it was energizing. It really, truly was. And the staff ended up adopting the same passion and the same commitment to try to do even more, working with downtown development. All those major projects paved way for smaller initiatives, smaller businesses, which Hannah can talk to very greatly. Those people also had a passion and a commitment. Now, going forward, the question would be to us and to the panel, how do we continue that passion and that commitment into the next phase of things that are going to happen to downtown? Folks, I hope you're with us because I'm excited for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And now I'd like to introduce the managing editor of the Post and Courier PD, a man with over 43 years of newsroom experience, Chris Day.
Thank you, Tim. And I'd like to introduce our panel, starting with Francis Marion University President Dr. Fred Carter, Florence Downtown Development Corporation Manager Hannah Davis, Florence Mayor Teresa Myers-Irvin, and Assistant City Manager Clint Moore. And I'm going to get started with the questions now. And I'm going to start with Hannah. I've noticed these new banners downtown about the Main Street Award, the 2023 Great American Main Street Award. We won that award last month, and it's an incredible honor, and I want to know what impact it has had on you and the businesses and restaurants in downtown Florence.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. So I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't acknowledge and give a majority of the credit to this award to our investors, to our small business owners, to the people who came before me. I've been with the organization now for 7 years, but this work has been ongoing since 2002, and everyone that has contributed to it has made it what it is today, which is a Great American Main Street Award-winning city. That was a very challenging thing for us to do. We're one of 3 in the nation. It's been 20 years since that award has come to South Carolina, the first being Greenville in 2003. For our downtown businesses, I think I wouldn't be out of place saying that I think everybody just is so full of pride and energy and is really looking forward to seeing what this award will do for us, because it's going to pay us in dividends over the next decade, and even beyond that. A community can only win this award one time. Running a small business is really tough. We've seen that with our community through COVID, but we have a resilient group of people, and they've really shown over the years that they're here to stay, and downtown has become a really desirable place for them to be. And then for me personally, I think that the impact is always, we're excited. We're excited that this happened. It's an incredible honor, but this work is not about me personally. It's about the collective, and I'm just a really small part of that.
Okay. All right. Dr. Carter, Francis Marion University has a beautiful campus east of Florence and multiple buildings in downtown Florence, including this wonderful building, the Performing Arts Center. What sparked the decision to expand the campus downtown?
Well, because the university needed to be closer to downtown, and we thought that the best way to do that was to pick up parts of the university, new parts of the university, and place them downtown. The downtown downtown revitalization came about as a result of relationships and partnerships. Many of the people sitting in this audience were a part of it. I saw Beverly Hazelwood sitting out there a little earlier. Beverly and Starr followed me around for the first year in Florence, all about the Performing Arts Center. And you know what? They were right, and we were successful in achieving that. I'll tell you a brief story about Senator Leatherman. We were sitting in here. The auditorium was about halfway constructed, We look across this, I turn to Senator Leatherman and I say, we're going to be about 12 million short on building this building. Little frightful. Senator Leatherman looked at me and smiled and said, Fred, how many times in our life will we ever have the opportunity to build a place like this? And that's true for this community, and that's true for downtown revitalization. There were the advocates, and there were the critics. And the critics made the advocates all the more staunch. Look, I could go on, and I'll tell you, Bruce and Lee, where would we be without that wonderful foundation pouring all the money into the city over the years? The legislative delegation, Senator Leatherman, Representative Lowe over in House and Ways and Means, the people that helped us find the money, the public institutions, Francis Marion, Florence Darlington Tech, Hope Health, the hospitals that were a part of bringing this together, the Museum Commission, the Library Commission, the entrepreneurs. My friend Tim Norwood sitting down there, you know, it's great that folks like me can sit up here and talk about what we did with other people's money. Tim did it with his own money, and he did it with his own investment risk. Just like the guys developing the Crest Corner, people like Ken Ard and people like Ken Jackson and people like Randy Key, people who developed the Waters Building, people like Ben Ziegler. You know, all of them put financial commitment from there that came from their own pocket. And then I have to tell you, the city of Florence. Man, what visionaries we've had at the city of Florence over the past few years. The Mayor Willis, Mayor Wakila, Mayor Irvin, all bring a unique dimension in terms of their vision and their passion and their commitment to the development of this city. And I couldn't be more proud with what we've achieved in that regard. The last thing I want to mention is the planning process that the city worked to put in place in the early part of the 20-aughts. That was a good planning process, and it saw us through 20 years of development in this city. Now the critical challenge for all of us, Chris, will be where we go in the next 20 years. And I got to tell you, part of the direction we need to go is to the north and to the east, because this needs to be an accessible, fair, and equitable city as we continue to develop it.
All right. Thank you. Mayor, you're up next. Downtown is the heart and soul of a city. Companies always look at downtowns to gauge the health of a community. What impact has the revitalization of downtown had on industrial recruitment for Florence and Florence County?
Thank you, Chris, for that question, and to everyone, good evening. When I think about economic development in association with Florence, our downtown, I'll give you a short story. I was born and raised here in Florence, so I've seen Florence when it went through the days of various development downtown. But I also served as a realtor. And as a young person, not being on council, I would come before the council and ask various questions. One of my questions was, when it came to the airport, when people would bring clients in to look at the city, they went back out through 327 rather than coming down Palmetto. And my question was always, why? Because if you're ashamed of any area of your city, that means you need to address that. Because if you don't want the businesses to come at it and looking at a certain area, that's saying that you're not prepared for them. So the vision, what has taken place as I've served and also with the prior mayors, was to look at where we're at, what can we do to improve this city? Because when industry come in, they come in sometimes like almost like a secret shopper. They want to see, how do you treat your city as a whole? How do you invest in your city as a whole? Because if you're not investing with your own citizens, what will you do for that company or that business? So I would like to point out the fact that quite recently, last year, you might remember that beautiful hotel we had on the end of, Palmetto going toward the airport. You couldn't miss it. I know you enjoyed seeing it. But we had a concern that was not appeasing to what we needed to have a lifestyle, a quality of life for all of our citizens. So thank you to all the partners who came together to bring that old motel down. So downtown development and community development is important because when industry come to these locations, they're evaluating how we're living to how we're going to treat their employees who's going to come. So if we're not taking care of our own, will we take care of the industry that is coming here? And I would say now we have, over $810 million investment from a company that's coming to Florence, South Carolina. So we're doing something right, Chris. So that's the impact that downtown and community development has had. And I will also think about our medical industry. When they would bring doctors in, medical professionals in to see about becoming a part of the medical institution here, they wanted to see how was the downtown life was. If you had a stressful day at the hospital, could you come downtown, meet your family, have a meal, walk around, and feel safe? And I dare to say we're doing that now. That's the impact. So we've had an impact now of industries investing in Florence, PD now being one of the shining lights for this whole region, but also this state. And I dare to say when I drive through now and I look at people walking through our downtown area, the economic impact is increasing. And also, just as Dr. Carter said, we're going across the track with our development. So we're expanding our inclusiveness of our city to all. And if we're going to be an inclusive city, businesses are looking for that because they're now very diverse and very inclusive. That's how what we're doing downtown and in our communities have affected our economy. Thank you, Chris.
All right, Clint, let's talk about Project Urban Square. It's coming up, I think they started doing some groundwork today, didn't they?
They did.
All right, so if you don't know, Project Urban Square is a parking deck, apartments, hotel, and retail and business space. It's being getting underway over on, what is it, McQueen?
It's bounded by McQueen, Baruti, Coit, and Evans.
Okay. So please give us an update on Urban Square and where we are and where we're going.
Absolutely. I think we're all very excited that Urban Square has finally started. This is, echoing what Chris said, kind of a mega block redevelopment of that area. COVID had a huge impact, like it has had on many things, between the increase in cost, the supply chain issues, the workforce issues. It gave us a little bit of time to reevaluate and re-examine and bring things back into budget, but we finally started on that project, and I think the biggest thing that this project will do is provide an example of how we expand our growth within downtown, outside of the boundaries of our historic district. We've been able to fully capitalize within those 200 blocks of Dargan and Evans, and now it's important that we show that vision like we did very early on with redevelopment on how and what we can do with our redeveloping downtown. So this, along with our downtown master plan, will provide a great example of the future of downtown Florence and what it will look like.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to go back to Dr. Carter with since we're talking about growth and expansion, the university purchased the Circle Park Behavioral Health Center on Gregg Avenue in downtown Florence in 2020. It will be home to the university's rapidly expanding School of Health Sciences. How will the building be used, and when is the renovation scheduled to begin?
Yeah, we'll begin the solicitation of bids on that new building sometime late this fall. As you probably know, Chris, we're queuing up with a couple of other buildings that we're building on campus, and so we'll begin this fall. That building will be home to the third and fourth year medical students that we have from the University of South Carolina School of Medicine. In 2024, 2025, they'll be joined by a similar cohort of third and fourth year medical students from the Medical University of South Carolina, and they'll be, that both cohorts will essentially be taking some of their didactic courses there, and then of course doing their clinical rotations, Donna, over at McLeod and out at MUSC Florence. So that Circle Park building will be a major part of what we do with medical education in this community over the next decade. One issue I want to correct you on. We don't know at this juncture whether it'll be a renovation of that building or whether we'll take the building down and put another building up with a very, very similar design, time specific. We'll rely upon what the contractors and developers advise us with regard to the cost. And we'll be guided by our good counsel, the mayor, and from city council as well.
All right, thank you. All right, Hannah, I'm coming back to you now. The Downtown Florence Development Corp helps businesses create business plans, renovate buildings, and grow their businesses downtown. Can you just go into that a little bit more about what you all do and how you help bring small businesses downtown?
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to say that our office provides resources for businesses and entrepreneurs from idea to open. And so what that means for us, we help from the very early beginning stages of someone coming in with an idea, helping them develop a business plan and move forward into potentially a bricks and mortar space in our downtown. We're short on space in our historic district, so we'll be expanding those areas of focus as we kind of go forward over the next decade. But what we do is we help figure out how a business needs to operate, what that structure looks like, and how to move them forward with all of our partner entities and agencies that help us with that. So we have the Francis Marion Kelly Center for Economic Development, who's a very strong partner of ours. We work regionally with them, and then we also work with the local SCORE chapter through the chamber and several other partners who provides specific resources, everything from commercial lease handling all the way through just figuring out how to market their business. So we really touch businesses from every aspect of their operations from idea to open. And on the bricks and mortar front, we have our incentive programs, which are really intended as gap-filling incentives that are there to help people manage the costs of these high-priced renovations on these historic buildings. And that's a twofold approach. So we want to make sure that our buildings are getting quality renovations. That's why that funding exists. And then we also want to make sure that we're supporting our small business and entrepreneurs because they're the ones taking the financial risk, as Dr. Carter mentioned earlier. And we want to make sure that they are set up for as much success as we can possibly manage for them. And we handhold through the whole process, through the whole business cycle. So a business comes to us saying, we're ready to sell, we're ready to retire. We're working on those fronts to help them identify new buyers for their businesses or help them realize maybe selling or moving or expanding their business as well. So we really touch small businesses at every single phase of their cycle, and that's one of the exciting things that we spend a lot of time on.
Okay. Mayor, let's talk a little bit about the cultural district that's here in Florence. South Carolina has 9 unique cultural districts that make the arts top of the mind. Downtown Florence is one of those. Downtown includes public art displays, art galleries, the Florence County Museum, and of course the South Carolina Pecan Food and Music Festival. Now the Pecan Festival is a program of the Florence Downtown Development Corp. But can you describe the impact the Pecan Festival and the Cultural District has on Florence and the surrounding areas?
Thank you, Chris, for that question. When it comes to the Pecan Festival, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the founder, Ms. former City Councilwoman Pat Gibson Highmore. She was actually the original founder of that festival, and it's because of her ability to partner and work with others that her, along with her team, along with the Florence Downtown Development Corporation, that festival has expanded to where it's at now. And according to the data that was collected and provided to us from 2022, that festival generated over a $2 million impact for this area. Think about that one festival. And also it generated jobs which were associated with the vendors being there and the multiple vendors that serve in the area. And when you think about the fact that Pecan Festival, some people come in, even the day before, so they put what we call heads in beds. Therefore, it affected not only the hospitality community with our restaurants and our hotels, it really has a state now recognition for being the state festival. So that is how powerful that festival has been. But the cultural district, when you think about the fact when you walk down Dargan Street, that if you can go and see that beautiful library that everyone look like it should be in Washington or Columbia, then after you read a book, you can also check and see if there's something happening at the Little Theater if you want to see some live performances. Then not only that, you can walk right down from there, come and you see our beautiful Performing Arts Center where we're at now. And I must say we just celebrated, it was a concert here with the Serpentine Fire, excellent music. But even from that, you'll walk a little further down and you go to our museum. And our museum, if you have not been there, I would encourage you to go there. And one of the great things about the Florence Museum is that it's located in the center of downtown. The children from the schools come there to enjoy. But also, if you think about the fact that William H. Johnson, who was born right here in Florence, in East Florence, is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. His family's buried right here in the Union Cemetery. So even the link from that cultural to go out to the cemetery to see a beautiful monument which is placed there. Our cultural district has the support of also having the Francis Marion University Center having an art gallery downtown. And you can go there and see various artworks displayed there. So when I think about the effect of that art corridor, you can walk and enjoy artwork. You can also think about the restaurants there, because cuisine is also an art form. I tell everyone, you eat first with your eyes. So we have restaurants where you can go in and eat and have a beautiful meal. Our corridor generates foot traffic. And a part of a lively downtown is having the ability to walk, because when people walk through, they can also partake of the businesses there. But also our art commission is also working right now on a program where they're going to have the businesses working with them to have stickers in their windows so they can also go there scanning and partake of the artwork. So that corridor is so important, not only because of the cuisine and the artwork, but because citizens now have a lifestyle that they can walk through a downtown and feel safe, enjoy live artwork, and also just have a good place to be. So that's how important that corridor, art corridor is. But also now, just as Rachel stated, we are looking to expand the footprint of the downtown beyond just the limits that you see. So you will see that happening as well. So our art corridor, because of our citizens and visitors, when you walk through downtown and you purchase something, you add to also the economy of the city of Florence. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And one last question before we open it up to questions from the audience. So Clint, will hit you up with the event center that's going to be going into the old Carolina Theater just right down the road on Dargan Street. Can you just tell us about those plans and when the work will get started and everything else about it?
Yeah. So the Carolina Theater, we started architectural work back in 2020, and again, it was impacted by COVID and everything that occurred with that. So originally it encompassed both the Carolina Theater and the pharmacy, and based upon the budget, we've had to pull that back, but I think that will provide a lot of good opportunity for someone with the pharmacy building. So we have, it allowed us a lot of time to evaluate the building. We were able to get in there, do a lot of investigative work. We found a lot of stuff that had happened to it, probably made us all cringe a little bit over a multitude of renovations throughout the years. So we have put together what I think is a very good set of plans that pays homage to what it previously once was, and really bring out some of the architectural features that we'll try to reestablish within the building. But we will put out the bid here in this week, receive bids in about a month, and then start construction by this fall. So We expect that to take about 12 to 14 months to finish out, and then we'll have a building that will be a multi-use functional space, be able to provide a place to host small music venue, weddings, and different events. So it's important that when we invest in any space, be it a public space or a building, that we provide the opportunity for a multitude of uses. That way things can always be activated and be contributing back to the district. So be looking out for that. We're very excited to have that construction going on.
All right, sounds good. Okay, we're going to open up the questions now to the people of the audience. If you will raise your hand, and Allison will come and get you and bring you down to ask the questions. They can either be about the downtown redevelopment or the Post and Courier, anything you want to ask about either of those. So raise your hands, and Allison will come get you. Okay, so no, okay.
Do you want to talk about our loop trail?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody.
Well, those types of things are always a little complicated just because of all the organizations, be it DOT, and everything that we have to work through. But we are planning a downtown loop trail. There will be 3 different loops that you can take. So as folks visit or you work downtown, you can take that. Also, any opportunity we have during the redevelopment of our streets within the downtown district, we try to capitalize on bike lanes and share rows and everything that we can to help facilitate the expansion of transportation. So not limiting it just to cars and vehicles, but expanding that and allowing a multitude of functions. So yes, there will be.
Yeah, so part of that is, so one of the things in our downtown master plan that we're actively working on is our corridors and connections. And with that corridor and connection plan that we have, it's going before City Council, it's already been adopted by FDDC. The corridors running north and south and east and west are all getting that same attention with an eye on equity and inclusivity, making sure that the people who need to get downtown can get downtown in whatever mode of transportation that is most comfortable and effective for them. So absolutely, the focus will be on making sure that with that loop trail system, which by the way will go, the longest loop goes all the way down to National Cemetery Road. So it's a very long loop. So it's like a 1 and 3 and 5 mile or something like that. So it's definitely going to be part of that process to make sure everything is as connected and usable as possible.
You know, Chris, I'm obligated to point this out, that the acoustics are so fine in here, there's no need for the mic. Just a thought.
If I would like to add the intentional placement of things like the Barn Street campus, our city center market, the Save a Lot, the work that Hope Health is doing, all the many partners that we have. There's an intentional look at making sure that all of these amenities and things that add to anyone's life here in Florence is accessible. And so, again, a big focus is on the corridors and creating that access for everyone within Florence.
And I do want to add to that too. When you look at how we've developed downtown, the center of downtown has been, when you look at Evans and Dargan, and when you look at Dargan, you have your north and south ends of development. So you will notice that we are putting more focus now on the north end of Dargan to bring that development further to the Lucas Street end. And if you were to cross over Lucas Street and go down the rest of Darby, you'll see where there's some additional sidewalks, thanks to our county councilman. I especially want to say out to Councilman Al Bradley with the funding to continue the sidewalks there. And we have that walkability that will take us all the way out to North Vista. So we are purposefully looking to make sure we do have that connectivity, purposefully.
Chris, just a couple of kudos here that should be inserted. One to Bruce and Lee for going north of Dargan and cleaning up that old junkyard.
Yes.
But the second is to Carl Humphreys and Hope Health for building that wonderful facility where they did. What a great statement for this community.
Chris, I'm going to feed off that one too. And to Carl, I want to say, a lot of people don't realize that when Hope Health was originally going to be built, it was scheduled or slated to be built on Cherokee. But thank you to our former mayor, Mayor Wakila, Representative Tara Alexander, Carl Humphreys, and another representative, Hope Health, and myself, thereby being the city councilwoman, we literally had to go to Washington, D.C. to meet with Congressman Jim Clyburn to get the funds reallocated so it could be built there. So that effort took a lot of teamwork and partnership, and I always love to say partnerships is what's going to be our foundation for building upon. So that is why you now see a beautiful Hope Health welcoming us, rather than that airplane fuselage that used to be there. So there's been a lot of changes, and if you've not had the chance, look at the history of downtown and look for the airplane, and you will truly appreciate Hope Health more when you see that airplane that was there. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to end the questions right now. Oh, you have one more? Okay.
I responded to that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Councilman Chipper Smith has been an advocate for a dog park for a while. We do have some green spaces here, and right now there's 2 locations being considered for the future of a dog park. So that is being looked upon. So yes, that is being addressed.
Okay. If you have any other questions, we'll be out in the lobby if you want to ask them. And turn it over to Robbie to close for us.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a round of applause for all of our panelists? I'm Robbie Scott, Director of Communications and Community Relations for the Post and Courier. Much has been said this evening about Florence, the greater PD region, and the Post and Courier. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is just the beginning. We want to keep this conversation going, and we want you to share your voice. As P.J. Browning said, this is your newspaper. We welcome your comments, regardless if you say pecan or pecan. Please tell us what's on your mind by submitting a letter to the editor at Post and Courier PD Submit Letter. We truly, truly appreciate your attendance tonight and would like to ask you to please consider supporting transparent, real news by subscribing to the Post and Courier PD. We are set up right out in the lobby to help you, or you can visit Post and Courier PD Subscribe. Additionally, please consider signing up for our free newsletter, PD Headlines, at Post and Courier PD Headlines. The many unique communities that make up the PD all share a sense of commitment to investing to the community, and that was echoed so eloquently tonight by the mayor. People from all generations, generations of families, and even the newcomers that are here now calling PD home. The Post and Courier is honored to tell your stories, and we want to become the part of the fabric of your life and become part of your community. And again, this is your newspaper. Before we conclude, I would like to thank Donna and McLeod Health with your inspirational remarks. Thank you so very much for sharing. And our panelists, and to everyone, safe travels home. Thank you.